was I had this really cool counselor, and we were out talking. I was like, and he goes, Ted, go walk through that puddle. And I was in a place where I decided I was going to surrender to anything he wanted me to do. And so, what? He goes, yeah, go walk through that puddle. So I went and walked through the puddle, and he goes, you still went to the bottom, huh? I go, yeah. And he goes, so you're not Jesus Christ. You can't wipe that water. So enjoy your humanness. I'll just never forget that. It was so important because I thought I had to be able to, without using that as a metaphor, I had to be able to walk on water rather than enjoying splashing through the water. And so whenever I have kids, we find puddles and splash through them just to give that permission. Another piece around shame, because it gets a hold of us so hard and we're so domesticated. What were you thinking? At your age. Well, I am. I'm free. So we were taught these things that, and so shame for me, the acronym is should have already mastered everything. I shouldn't have, or I wouldn't be here. And so to realize I can still splash through a puddle and I don't have to walk across water allows me to come from here and love these guys who keep me alive. And I want them to be aware because they get all the information first. Another big piece I came to the realization of is most of our actions through a major part of our life are actually to teach us who we're not, so we can start to know who we are. And so I'll make up numbers. This is definitely not factual. So the first 30% of our life, probably 90% of our decisions are to find out who we're not. Go kick Genevieve in the butt. Oh, that'll be fun. And all of a sudden we find out that's not so fun. There we go. Don't you dare go kick Genevieve in the butt. So we, I think about like the kiddos. When I had my old office, and about once a year, some kiddo would throw a rock through my window. Because I was at the same, half of my office was underground, and then I had a window, and it looked right out at their feet of the preschool. And so every once in a while, and it was usually a boy, all of a sudden, and out would go the window. And we had it set up, Carl Colonius and I set it up from when Joe broke the window. And so we had a piece of plywood that fit perfectly. And so it could actually be this whole experiential piece. Yes, rocks go through windows, and now we got to come on the weekend and fix it, and da-da-da. But what mostly happens is we throw that rock through the window, and whoever comes up and says, why did you do that? You should have known better. And so very early in life, we are taught to come from a shame place of information I didn't have before that. So, just like from our domesticators, when we look back, please remember, we don't judge with the wisdom we have today. Because how did we get that wisdom today? It's from our experiences from the past. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, we negate ourselves. And so instead, as we're looking at our past and we're doing our inventory, which when we have a high impactful loss, we do because we're shattered and we're Humpty Dumpty. And we're down there and we're picking up each piece of the shell to see what's really us and put a new Humpty Dumpty back together, not the old one, and then grieve that we lost the old one. We're looking at this piece. It's what we do naturally. It's just what we do. So the more I can realize that these pieces are what gave me the wisdom of today, rather than me being a parent that goes, God, I was so stupid and ridiculous for doing that. No, I was doing the best I could in that moment. It allows that piece that I'm talking about with whack-a-mole, that I'm willing to see these pieces without torturing them, without penalizing them, and honoring that they are what gave me the wisdom I have today. Which is really cool, because then I can maybe come every once in a while from the wisdom of today, rather than having emotional regression and coming from that place. Because that's what we do. Cool? that's just a sideline, because I never do tangential talking, so I just thought I'd give it a try. so now we're going to shift gears just a little bit. We're going to talk about spirituality. It's really cool because I have a piece of bread in my hand. That's the size they used to give us for communion. I always thought it was too little because I was starving and wanted more, so I think it's funny it's in my hand. But we're going to shift from more of that clinical piece to how this is more than just a rudder for me and a keel on my boat. And it's where this is how it becomes my self-sustaining fuel and passion. And you can see if it helps you out or anything. And so please know I'm not trying to push any religion, any spirituality, anything on you. It's just like the table. You get to eat what you want and leave the rest here, and I'll eat it tonight. But please know that. That's really important to me. I don't ever try to push anything on anybody, because I shall not play God on someone else's path. So in this work, what I found is the clinical and the spiritual, when they come together, I get really excited, because then they seem really real to me, because it doesn't have dogma. Now, I can always build dogma within it, which we do all the time. But seeing for me how these two line up so nicely, then I don't have to have something quite so ethereal like that hand. And my little brain does want to have some sort of cognitive construct to feel safe. It's just how my brain works. So this helped me with a roadmap that can help me with spirituality. But I got to get rid of my goldfish seal purpose football. There we go. So this is how I find fuel within this whole process, and have it be a lot bigger than me and give me reason to get up and to do something. Otherwise, I'd just grow some corn, and that would be fun too, and not leave the house. But this is where I get my fuel and my passion. So with that said, we start looking at how this can be a spiritual piece and how that works. And so I'll probably use God, higher power, throw in whatever words work for you. And whatever they want to be. I don't need to know, but please just flip any of my words so that they work for your psyche. Same thing we talked about with grief. For me, these words were too negative when I first started looking at it, so I had to come up with words that let my psyche in. So please just do your own semantic acrobatics. So when I went to treatment back in beginning of 97, I was screwed up, and actually screwed up just meaning I had no foundation. And I really, really only wanted to die. And I'd contemplated that a lot. And I said, okay, if this doesn't work, then I can totally have permission. And so I went in a really tough place. It means I worked my ass off, which is cool, because it meant I was still fighting to live, even if I didn't want to live. And so I went to treatment, and luckily I got to be there, and I had lost my drug of choice called Carrie and Amy, and there was no dealer. And I understood craving so well, just like that hand is for me. And luckily that gave me the 28 days to rebuild and do this process without realizing how much I was doing this process. So I went to treatment, and the cool thing about this is full cycle. I went there in 1997. In 2005, almost that entire staff, except for one person, came to Betty Ford, and I was their teacher for professionals and residents. And everyone cried, because here they saw someone who only wanted to die, and now they were coming to Betty Ford to do a workshop with the person they had seen who didn't want to live. And so it was really cool. So I honor that in all of them too, for giving me that opportunity and holding that space. So I went to treatment, and about day 22, I don't know your program, but and it's different the 6-month day, and it's changed now. But back then, you had the 28-day program that there's the same 30 people for the same 28 days, and there's nothing magical about 28 days except back then the magical piece is that's what insurance paid up to. So now that's changing and things are varying, and I watched many of the people I got to work with for 6 months from there. They're doing amazing work, and recovery is lifetime, and grief is lifetime. So to throw those days on it is pretty crazy, but it's what us humans like to do. But about day 20 to 24, it's all about the third step of finding a higher power that makes sense to me that I can turn my will over to. Okay, I'd worked really hard. I'd worked so hard on all those inventories that it kind of showed me as a coke addict, an alcoholic, a pothead, and I wasn't any of those, but I was scrutinizing so close, and so yeah, in 4th grade, I sold a joint, so I'm a drug dealer. And I stole it from my brother, so that means I'm a double drug dealer. So that's how hard I was scouring. And probably partially subconsciously how hard I was trying to prove that I didn't deserve to be on this earth. But so it was actually good, because I scoured down to nothing so I could build something worthwhile and glean back all the pieces that were so important to me. All those underpinnings. The love for Leslie and Terry and Amy and Richard and those pieces. From that invisible underpinnings, I could rebuild me. So about that time, at this treatment center, they were very old school. And so there was no I, me. It was all us, our. Because if it's I and me, then I'm playing God on my own path. So there was no individual counseling, and it was pretty hardcore, but I was trained to ski by Jean Maé and Dadu Maé, and so I was kind of used to that, so it didn't really matter, because I was kind of used to, you did it wrong, and so, and on that, David Anderson and I came down Al's one day, and we were kicking its butt, and Frederick Garcia as well. We were just shredding it, having so much fun, kicking its ass, and we get down there, there's Ernie Blake, and there's Max, and there's Jean, and there's Chilton, and they're looking at us like this. And so we ski up, and we just think we've kicked its ass. And Jean just goes, remember, we're 12. What are you doing? You don't sit and chop the mountain away. You caress it like a woman. We're 12 years old, so but I never forgot, and I do ski differently due to that. So it just took many years before that made any sense whatsoever. So I was kind of used to this. What are you doing? So I was at the right place. Well, there's this one room, and that's where all the counselors were, and I'd seen people pounding on the door, trying to get in there and doing all these parts to trying to get in there and have a one-on-one. And they didn't allow it. That door just did not open. Well, day 22, they call me into the room, and the door opens, and I go into the room, and so I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting, I'm sitting in the chair, and I'm like, God, what did I do wrong? I thought I was trying to do everything perfect. Man, I'm working so hard, and because I want to live, and so what have I done that I'm in so much trouble, and what's going on? And about then, it's like, fuck these guys, man. I paid the money. What's going on? I'm smarter than most of them, and some of them have been addicts forever. One was a prostitute just 4 years ago, and now she works here and teaches us yoga, and about then, a guy walks in, and so I get quiet, and he goes, Ted, we got to really work on this third step. And so now without knowing any of this, I'm coming really from a pretty humble place right here. And I go, yeah, well, if there is a God, I hate God. I don't believe there's a God, but if I don't believe in God, why am I so angry at God? So if there is a God, it's just a shitty God. And so how am I going to turn my will over to that thing? And he goes, I get it. And he goes, Okay, so tell me 3 words that mean something deep to you. They're just like what can hold you up on some of these days. Well, this is only 6 months after, correct my math or whatever, but around 6 months after the girls had died, and so I'm still completely thinking like a dad. So I say patience, compassion, and unconditional love. Because that is what Leslie and I raised Carrie and Amy with. And he goes, okay, where's your higher power? And he walked out of the room. So now I'm sitting in the chair. Do I get up and leave? Do I? But then he came back in with a smile on his face and he said, Ted, all a higher power has to be is something that you run your decisions through before you take action. A higher power can be 3 words on the board. My atheist groups at Betty Ford Center were actually some of my easier groups. I was the spiritual care counselor, so that sounds like a pretty strange statement. But most atheists, true atheists, believe in be good to yourself, be good to others, and be good to the earth. There's the higher power. They go, you busted us, dude! So it's being able to run my world through those. Now, if you notice, those aren't down here. They're kind of the egg whites that keep these together. At the time, they were a good start. They were seeds in the soil to help me, like we were talking with your question of how do you move to this. Well, my scared child went right on. I happened to be in a difficult relationship at the time. So my scared child said, if I can be more patient in that relationship, if I can be more compassionate in that relationship, and if I can come from unconditional love, the relationship will work. I forgot there was another person involved in the relationship. And it never, ever at that moment crossed my mind at all that those might be towards me. At all. Mm-hmm. Maybe if I could be more patient with myself, if I could be more compassionate with myself, and I could give myself to my best ability unconditional love, maybe I'd be making some different decisions so I wasn't coming from the scared child. So the scared child got to have fun for about another year, and I got to be in hell. But it was a start, and it was really, really important. So about that time, I went back out in the room, and this was a big lecture room, and the chairs were like this. And remember, it was very structured. I knew I sit on the 4th chair on that side for all 30 days. And so right as I went to sit down, the person giving the talk, not the person who had been giving me my personal talk, she said, the understanding God is God standing under. And for some reason, when she did this move, and I happened to be just sitting down, I think it was the first time I actually realized the chair supported me. Mm-hmm. Cool. So that move, for some reason, was my aha moment. And so all of a sudden I went, oh, now this was, as I went walking in the woods later on, because that's the only place I can really think, is, okay, God is standing under. Even if God is 3 words on the board, it's a foundation that will hold me as I have to navigate this world. And then in my kooky brain, it's like, okay, so just like God doesn't sit up there and say, you see that freaking ponderosa pine? It's going down with the lightning right now. The universe does. And the universe is getting back to a natural state, which actually means us dying. The mountains up there getting to sea level, children dying, spouses dying, car crashes happening. The universe just does. And things happen in this world. But as I walk this world, I can have that foundation of an understanding of a higher power that's underneath me. So somehow removing God from doing and rescuing, I could then have the supports of running it through my higher power. It took me to another place that I use all the time, quietly and continuously, of the hierarchy. So my higher power, me, certain family members, family of my understanding, and others. And that hierarchy also aligns me. So when I make a decision, am I coming from here and then going down here? And if anything, like another person or a beer or whatever my addiction is in there, I have been disconnected from my higher power. Now when I first thought about that, I would have never, this would have been higher power, others than me if there's time. It never crossed my mind to move that. But how can I come to my full self or my true identity if I have any false God in between here that I'm running my life through?
I just got that the other day when you said that.
Cool.
60
Congratulations.
for 59. I just got it.
That means you don't
I
have
mean, it's visual for me. It really
Yeah.
helped me. Like
Cool.
when you did that too, I'm a visual learner and I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, then I can have, for me, then I can have the strength to walk through most things, knowing I'm not alone. But I'm not dependent on another person to fill that space, or a chemical, or a liquid, or anything like that. I can do it, whatever it is. And then I trust I'm coming from here, and I also trust when I'm out of alignment, I'm going to go get aligned. Cool? So, as that happened, I kept playing with it, and I kept playing with it, and I kept playing with it. And so I started building this whole idea, and then as a former tennis pro, I started thinking about this. And right before my girls died, I did behavioral mod. I was a teacher for behavioral mod, but don't call it those things anymore, but oh well. And so I had all the bad boys and bad girls, and also the most brilliant boys and girls. So I'd have two people fighting in the middle of the room, one person that we're tube feeding who's trying to grab your hair and not let go, and then I'd also have a girl that would say, okay, I need your mom to drive you to my house, measure my whole house, and if you filled it full of water, how many gallons of water will it hold? And she'd come back with an answer and expect me to know the answer. So I had these wild classes. So luckily I had a pretty cool principal. And so we ran the entire school year through Shakespeare. That's pretty cool when you can get some hoodlum getting down on his knee to another guy and say, I love you. And coming out at the end of the year and going, Ted, can't we fit Othello in before the end of the year? So that I was able to do those things. So I talked a lot about responsibility, being conscious, responsibility. That one of them, I was trying to break a lot of the addiction and generational dysfunction and work on them owning their piece, owning their behaviors, rather than blaming an external source, which immediately makes us want an external rescuer. And so we talked about responsibility all the time. And in that, I turned it into the ability to respond. And I'm sure a lot of people have. I'm not taking credit for that. But so I just flipped responsibility around. And then I added consciously. So this was such a big theme that year. And so all of a sudden I found with my children dead, I'm in that same place. So all of a sudden I had a responsibility, which gave me a reason to live again. The ability to respond consciously was my only responsibility in that moment. But it gave me something. It gave me something to hold on to rather than just think I should be dead. The ability to respond consciously. Today I'd say to my best ability, I will respond consciously because I give myself more permission. So with that, I then went to thinking about tennis and how tennis played in this. I started thinking about doubles. I remember when I was the Southwestern Tennis Player of the Year, some title like that, and they came to interview me, and they said, so what is the biggest secret of doubles? And I said, finding the right partner. And they thought I was being a jerk, but I was being very truthful. But all of a sudden, with that same idea, I don't want to play doubles where it's 4 singles people pretending to share a court. I want that partner. And so with that, all of a sudden I went, oh, I can have my higher power of my understanding be my doubles partner, which means I am now a co-creator with my higher power. And now I've got another reason to live. And that wild roller coaster process, cognitive process, allowing it to absorb down to here, gave me a reason to live. So I was like, cool, that's pretty awesome, but now what do I do with it? Well, in one of our assignments, they had us do straight out anger letters, and I couldn't do anger letters. I first of all thought anger was a behavior. I didn't even know it was an emotion. And anger could get me killed, literally. So I was really scared, but I was surrendering to this process as I worked with step 2 and 3. And I'd get caught up and get all bully-like and judge the heck out of it. But I stayed with it and I stayed with it. And so on all of my anger letters, I had to write, God has a plan for me and it's unfolding one step at a time. It was the only way I could write that letter. Today I'd probably say there is some plan out there and I'm doing it one step at a time as a co-creator with my higher power. So, but that's since 1997. So we play with this, but this gave me something to work with. And then within that, I could start playing around with this idea that there is a plan and it's unfolding one step at a time. How many people are skiers, boarders in here or have done it? Okay. And how many, have you done any sport of any kind? Okay, you've driven a vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're going to take this and you're just going to change it to from here, driving down Salazar, and even though there's a stop sign up the road, okay? Any sport? Swimming? In the ocean?
Anyway, yeah.
Okay, let's use the ocean. The pool's a little too easy. So in the ocean, there's certain places that could be dangerous and you have to pay attention to the moment, but you also better be paying attention to where you're swimming towards. Cool.
Absolutely. Okay,
So the rest of us are going skiing. You're going skiing with melted snow, and you're getting us all there in your vehicle. So where I'm going with this is what I realized is that this one step at a time, a big part of it is very similar like skiing. So I go up the chair, and let's pretend you haven't skied very much, and I think, I have to get down Al's run. Holy crap. Okay, I'm overwhelmed, I can't move, I'm catatonic, I'm definitely looking for a rescuer, and I did pay for that ticket, so Kayla better come get me off the mountain or she's not going to get to do my wedding, bitch. Okay, so that is too big. And the thing with loss as well as recovery, because addiction is the loss of self, is I'm caught in the past and overwhelmed by the future. And so in that, I'm stuck. Because the past and the future have collided and I'm in a free fall. And I can't move. So in that, Mary, I think you asked the question, this helps with that piece, or maybe Nancy, you did, of how do I come back? Okay, I don't have to figure out how to get down Al's. First of all, I don't know if there's a rope up. I don't know if there's rocks. I hope my bindings, so I don't know any of that. So my first step is to start to look at my line. And so I might look down 4, 5, 6 moguls, and then I start to do my line. And so there's my line, and I plan on doing that line. But I go down 4 or 5 moguls, and then I come back presently totally to this turn. Because if I don't do this turn, who cares about that 5th mogul? And so all my energy comes back to how I'm doing this turn, caressing the woman, of course. But how am I making this turn? Because then, as far as I know, there's a rock behind that 3rd turn, and I have a whole new line. So I go out 5 moguls, and then I come back presently to this turn, and then transition into my next turn. It's a good way to ski moguls, I promise. So, but that meant so much because it's one step at a time. The reason I talk about the moguls is because we don't really, in today's world, do one step at a time. Because otherwise, you might forget that stop sign's up there. So we have to have certain information, but then we come back to the present exact reality. So when I was goofing off in Hollywood for a while, doing some work for some different people, it's a trippy culture out there. And there was so much about the red carpet. Whatever the red carpet happens to mean, the Oscar or whatever that is. And so I pictured this red carpet. Well, the red carpet's only unrolled to about right there. If I get past the red carpet, I trip over the roll, get laid out, and paparazzi gets to have a great day with me. If that does happen, I can always get up and get back on this side. But the whole idea is I stay with this, and as a co-creator with my higher power and the ability to respond consciously, I can start to do this. And when I veer, that's my next step, to get realigned. Many of the Lakota beliefs on the southern direction, one of the things people are grateful for is, and grandmother and grandfather always welcome us back home with open arms. In other words, I have veered from the past, because we veer, adapt, and normalize. Veer, adapt, and normalize. And somewhere in there we lost ourselves. And as we do our work, we start to realign, and they always welcome us back home and celebrate that we had the cojones to come back home. So with that, all of a sudden, I can do this piece and have it unfold one step at a time. Now, with that idea, I do believe strongly, I think it's from when I was a little kid, and they had given up on my bread. We had a rope